I was pushed out of my family so they could pour everything into my golden child sister's success. Now I'm a self-made millionaire, and they're begging me to rescue the family business she ran into the ground. You know that feeling when your past crashes into your present, demanding you pick up the pieces they shattered? That's exactly what happened when my phone screamed at 2 in the morning, and the voice on the other end, my own father's, was utterly broken, begging me to save the family business, the same business they'd ripped from my hands for not being good enough. The bitter irony of it all, hearing them finally admit they'd made the biggest mistake of their lives, was almost suffocating. Growing up in Springfield, Illinois, I lived and breathed Thompson Construction. My great-grandfather built that company from nothing in 1924, and the red brick building on Maple Street wasn't just an office. It was the heart of our family. I practically grew up smelling sawdust and listening to blueprints rustle as Grandpa Thomas spread them across his massive oak desk. From the moment I could hold a hammer, my summers were spent right there, on his construction sites. He taught me to speak the language of buildings, to understand how foundations connected to the earth, how walls carried the weight of dreams. By 10, I was spotting structural problems most seasoned workers missed. This wasn't just a job for me. It was in my blood. My sister, Sarah, 3 years younger, was a complete contrast. While I was learning to mix concrete, she was excelling in ballet and advanced math. Her bedroom walls showcased academic awards. Mine were covered in vintage construction tools and architectural sketches. The shift, the subtle sidelining of me, started in middle school. My parents, David and Linda Thompson, celebrated Sarah's every academic achievement like a national holiday, while my practical accomplishments were just expected. I remember, at 13, I designed a treehouse using proper engineering principles, something Grandpa would have loved. Dad just glanced at it before rushing off to Sarah's science fair. The message was clear: brains mattered more than hands. By high school, the favoritism wasn't subtle anymore. It was a gaping wound. Sarah's straight-A report cards meant expensive family dinners. My summer internship with a respected construction company? Barely a nod. I'd sit there, watching my parents practically glow as they planned Sarah's future at Thompson Construction, despite her complete disinterest in actually building anything. The breaking point hit my sophomore year. I discovered a new foundation technique in Grandpa's old journals that could save 20% on material costs and improve structural integrity. I was so excited to show Dad, to contribute something real. He barely looked at my detailed calculations and sketches before dismissing them as amateur theorizing. He said Sarah would bring real business expertise once she got her degree. That night, I found Grandpa Thomas in his workshop, his 78-year-old hands still moving with the precision of a master. I poured out my disappointment. He set down his chisels, his eyes, holding decades of wisdom, meeting mine. "Ryan," he said, his voice deep with experience, "your father sees numbers and profit margins. But buildings aren't just business ventures. They're promises we make to the future, commitments that will stand long after we're gone. You understand that because you feel it in your hands." He pulled out leather-bound journals from the company's founding. "True builders aren't made in classrooms," he whispered, pressing them into my hands. "They're forged through experience, one project at a time." Grandpa Thomas died suddenly that winter. The funeral filled Springfield's largest church. Contractors, clients, community members, all mourning a respected businessman. But I grieved the loss of my mentor, the only person who truly understood me. The night before the funeral, his lawyer gave me a small wooden box. Inside were his original tools from the 1940s, each piece perfectly maintained, with a note: "These tools built half of downtown Springfield. They should belong to someone who will honor their legacy." As we lowered his casket into the frozen earth, clutching those tools, I made a silent promise. I'd continue his tradition of excellence, no matter what my family planned. 3 weeks later, the final twist of the knife. I overheard my parents discussing their estate with their attorney. "Sarah will inherit Thompson Construction outright," my father declared matter-of-factly. "She has the intellectual capacity to modernize operations." My mother's voice carried equal certainty. "Ryan's a good boy, but he's more suited for hands-on work. Sarah understands the bigger picture." The attorney's pen scratched, documenting their decision to erase me from the family business I'd been preparing for my entire life. They talked about Sarah like a prized investment, reducing me to hired help in my own grandfather's company. That evening, I confronted them. The kitchen exploded in the most painful argument of my young life. When I demanded to know why, Dad's words cut deeper than any physical wound. "You're thinking small, Ryan. Playing with tools might seem important now, but business requires vision and education. Sarah has both. You're limiting yourself to being a worker instead of a leader." Mom nodded, adding that my focus on construction showed a lack of ambition. They decided Sarah's potential to elevate their social and financial status outweighed my genuine understanding of the business itself. It hit me then. They'd never seen me as anything more than free labor, someone to maintain their equipment while their true heir prepared for her throne. My junior and senior years of high school were a battleground. While Sarah collected college acceptance letters, I dove deeper into construction, taking every internship and part-time job I could find. My grades suffered, horrifying my parents and widening the chasm between us. I learned foundation work, electrical installation, everything I could. My supervisors praised my work ethic, my problem solving. But to my family, it meant nothing. The contrast became excruciating during Sarah's senior year. She got a full scholarship to Northwestern. The celebration dinner felt like a coronation. I sat at the far end of the table, invisible, as everyone toasted Sarah's plans to transform Thompson Construction into a modern corporate entity. My own college applications told a different story. I applied to construction management programs that combined practical training with business fundamentals. The University of Illinois seemed perfect. But when my parents found my application, their reaction shook the already crumbling foundation of our relationship. "Construction management?" my father roared, waving it like evidence of betrayal. "You're throwing away every opportunity we've given you for manual labor." My mother joined in, her voice trembling with disappointment. "After everything we've done for you, you're so ungrateful." They said Sarah understood what mattered. I was choosing to limit myself. The ultimatum came during a tense family meeting. They'd support my college only if I abandoned construction and pursued a respectable field like business law. Thompson Construction was Sarah's, but they might find me a management position if I proved myself worthy through proper education. I looked around the living room, at the family photos, the heirlooms. Sarah sat quietly, avoiding my eyes, unwilling to challenge them. In that moment, I knew they were asking me to betray everything Grandpa Thomas taught me, everything that felt meaningful. "I won't do it," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the emotional storm. "Construction isn't just a job for me. It's who I am. Grandpa Thomas taught me that buildings are promises we make to the future, and I want to keep making those promises." The explosion that followed released years of resentment. My father called me stubborn, foolish, predicted I'd end up a struggling construction worker. My mother cried, accusing me of rejecting their love. But the cruelest words came when they compared me directly to Sarah, saying she had the intelligence for real success, while I was settling for mediocrity. They couldn't understand that I'd found something more valuable than their approval, a sense of purpose, connecting me to my grandfather's legacy and my own deepest passions. The final confrontation arrived on my 18th birthday. I'd been accepted to the University of Illinois and planned to fund it with student loans and part-time work. When I announced my decision at breakfast, their reaction surpassed my worst fears. "Then you've made your choice," my father declared, his face flushed with anger. "If you're determined to waste your potential, you'll do it without our support or our name. Thompson Construction will go to someone who appreciates what we've built." My mother's tears turned to cold fury. "You're breaking this family apart with your selfishness." The cruelest moment came when they told me I had 24 hours to pack and leave. They were done, enabling my destructive choices. They needed to focus on Sarah's promising future. I was cut off from financial support, from family connections, and most painfully, from their love. That afternoon, I loaded my meager possessions into the beat-up Ford pickup I'd bought with construction earnings. Grandpa Thomas's tools and journals filled the truck bed. Sarah watched from her bedroom window, but never came out. My parents stood in the doorway as I started the engine, their faces showing no regret. The message was chillingly clear. I was no longer their son. As I drove away, heartbroken yet strangely liberated, I passed the Thompson Construction office. Through the windows, I saw my parents inside, already hanging Sarah's graduation photo and Northwestern acceptance letter in the lobby, where Grandpa's construction photos had hung for decades. They were literally erasing my connection to the family business before I'd even left town. In that moment, I understood. My exile wasn't just about college choices. They had decided Sarah represented the future they wanted, and I, a past they were eager to abandon. The construction worker's grandson wasn't good enough for their upgraded vision of success. But as I drove toward the interstate, carrying my grandfather's wisdom toward an uncertain future, I made a promise. A promise that would sustain me for years. I would prove their golden child favoritism was the biggest mistake they ever made. Someday, they would regret choosing image over substance, potential over passion. Austin, Texas, welcomed me with blazing summer heat and endless possibilities. I arrived with $800, Grandpa Thomas's tools, and a determination forged by rejection. The city buzzed with construction. My first month, I slept in my truck, showered at a gym, and scoured for work. Construction sites became my classroom. I started as a general laborer, hauling materials, cleaning, but always observing. The physical demands were brutal, Texas summers relentless. My hands blistered, my muscles ached. But every sunrise brought new lessons, small victories that built my confidence. My first real break came when a foundation crew struggled with a drainage problem. Drawing on Grandpa's journals, I suggested a modified French drain. The site foreman, skeptical but desperate, let me try it after hours. It worked perfectly, saving 3 days of expensive delays. Word spread. The young guy from Illinois had practical skills and innovative ideas. Contractors started requesting me. By winter, I'd saved enough for a small apartment and enrolled in evening business courses at Austin Community College, filling gaps in my knowledge while keeping construction at my core. I studied late into the night, fueled by memories of my parents' dismissal and Grandpa's example. The turning point truly arrived in my second year. I met Marcus Rodriguez, a Mexican-American entrepreneur who owned a small commercial renovation company. Marcus had built his business from nothing, a testament to sheer determination. His company, Rodriguez Restoration, specialized in preserving historical character. Marcus noticed my attention to detail. "You've got something special," he told me one lunch break. "Most guys your age just want to get through the day, but you're always asking questions, always looking for better ways. That's the kind of thinking that builds businesses, not just buildings." Marcus offered me a junior partnership. It meant investing my savings, but it offered profit sharing and hands-on business experience no classroom could provide. Working with Marcus opened my eyes to the entrepreneurial possibilities. We specialized in challenging projects, using creativity and craftsmanship to solve what seemed impossible. Our breakthrough came with the historic Paramount Theater. It needed extensive structural updates while maintaining its 1920s integrity. I developed a technique to reinforce the aging foundation using micropiles and polymer injection, strengthening the structure without damaging the decorative plaster. It solved a problem that had stumped 3 other contractors and saved the renovation from financial ruin. The Paramount project cemented Rodriguez Restoration's reputation for complex historical renovations. My contributions earned recognition from architectural preservation societies, bringing more business. But my most significant innovation came from developing energy-efficient retrofitting for older commercial buildings. Combining traditional methods with modern environmental technologies, I created systems that dramatically cut operating costs while preserving historical character. The breakthrough? Using Grandpa Thomas's journals to understand how buildings were originally designed to work with natural airflow and thermal mass. I adapted those principles with contemporary materials, creating retrofits that cut energy costs by 30 to 40% while improving comfort. Word of my energy-efficient retrofitting spread. Property owners saw they could reduce expenses, improve tenant satisfaction, and earn tax credits. As my reputation grew, so did my confidence. The scared 18-year-old who fled Springfield was becoming a skilled craftsman and innovative businessman. Every successful project proved my parents wrong about my potential. The validation I never received from my family came from satisfied clients, successful projects, and the growing recognition that I possessed a rare combination of practical expertise and creative problem-solving. But the deepest satisfaction came from knowing I was continuing Grandpa Thomas's tradition of excellence while building something entirely my own. The emotional climax of this period arrived when I received a wedding invitation. It had been forwarded through multiple addresses, finally, reaching me 3 years after Sarah had mailed it to my old Springfield apartment. Printed on expensive card stock, it announced her marriage to a financial analyst from Chicago. No personal note, just a standard invitation, treating me like a distant relative whose address was unknown, whose presence was optional. The coldness struck me harder than any angry confrontation ever could have. My family hadn't just rejected my choices. They'd completely erased me from their lives, not even knowing where I lived or what I'd accomplished. That night, looking at the invitation in my Austin apartment, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to go, to show them how wrong they'd been. But a larger part recognized that their opinion no longer mattered as much. I was building something real and meaningful, with or without their approval. The wedding invitation galvanized my determination. I wouldn't just succeed, I would excel beyond their wildest expectations. They'd chosen their golden child and written me off. Now, I would show them what they'd lost. By my 26th birthday, Rodriguez Restoration was one of Austin's most respected specialty construction companies. But I was ready for something bigger. My energy-efficient retrofitting techniques were attracting attention from major commercial property owners across Texas. Marcus and I had long conversations, and with his blessing and continued partnership, I founded Green Foundation Innovations, specializing exclusively in sustainable building solutions. The company represented everything I'd learned, combined with innovative approaches to environmental efficiency. My first major contract came from Stellar Properties, a Dallas-based company with dozens of older commercial buildings. Their portfolio was struggling with rising energy costs. Traditional retrofitting was too expensive or disruptive. I proposed a comprehensive approach, using Grandpa's understanding of natural building physics combined with cutting-edge environmental technologies. The pilot project was a 1960s office building in downtown Dallas, losing tenants due to high utility costs. The retrofitting took 6 months, carefully coordinated to minimize disruption. My team installed advanced insulation, smart glass windows, and geothermal heating and cooling. The building's energy costs dropped by 42% within the first year, and tenant satisfaction soared. Stellar Properties was so impressed, they contracted Green Foundation Innovations for 15 additional buildings across Texas. We rapidly expanded, growing from 3 employees to 50 in 18 months. My business success allowed strategic investments in real estate. I bought a modern home in Austin's Hill Country, a sanctuary and a demonstration space, proving environmental responsibility didn't sacrifice comfort or style. More importantly, I was honoring Grandpa Thomas's values while addressing 21st century challenges. Every building we retrofitted lasted longer, cost less to operate, and reduced environmental impact. We were proving that excellent craftsmanship and environmental stewardship could be profitable. By 28, my net worth exceeded $2 million. But the financial success felt less important than building something meaningful and sustainable. Industry recognition came when Green Foundation Innovations won Texas Small Business of the Year. Standing on that stage at the Austin Convention Center, accepting the award from Governor Abbott, I thought about Grandpa Thomas. How proud he would have been to see his lessons applied to challenges he could never have imagined. The scared teenager who'd left Springfield 10 years earlier had become a respected businessman and innovator. The media attention brought new opportunities. Southwest Construction magazine featured me on their cover. Industry conferences invited me to speak. But the most satisfying aspect of success was the impact on my employees and clients. We were creating good jobs, paying well, and helping businesses reduce their environmental footprint. Our expansion into Colorado and Arizona showed our techniques could succeed anywhere. I learned to balance leadership with hands-on involvement, mastering delegation and strategic planning. The emotional turning point came during a celebration dinner. My management team and I were enjoying the Southwest Construction magazine article about our rapid growth. At the next table, 2 businessmen were discussing construction news. Their conversation caught my ear when they mentioned Thompson Construction. David Thompson's daughter is running that company into the ground. One, a Chicago developer, said, shaking his head. She's got all these fancy business theories, but they don't work in real construction. They used to be reliable, but now they're just another contractor that promises more than they can deliver. His companion nodded. Heard they've lost most of their major clients. Too bad. The old man knew what he was doing. But these kids with MBAs instead of experience usually learn the hard way. Hearing about my family's struggles didn't bring the satisfaction I might have expected. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness. They'd cut me out so completely. Sarah, the golden child, was failing in ways visible to the whole industry. That night, sitting on my deck overlooking Austin's lights, I reflected. I'd proven my parents wrong, but their opinion no longer defined my self-worth. I was successful because I followed my passion and honored my grandfather's teachings, not to show them anything. But the irony gnawed at me. While I was building a thriving business based on Grandpa Thomas's wisdom, his actual company was being destroyed by someone who never understood its fundamental values. The family legacy he'd spent decades creating was disappearing. The realization that my family's problems were no longer my responsibility marked another step in my emotional growth. I'd built something better than revenge, a successful, meaningful career. Whatever happened to Thompson Construction was the consequence of their choices, just as my success was the result of my own path, despite their rejection. Through Austin's extensive construction network, I started hearing more details about Thompson Construction's decline. The company, once Springfield's most respected, was becoming a cautionary tale. Sarah's problems began immediately after her Northwestern graduation. She returned with her MBA and ambitious plans, implementing management consulting theories, restructuring the traditional hierarchy. She fired 3 experienced foremen who'd worked for the company for over 20 years, replacing them with younger supervisors who had degrees but limited hands-on experience. This created resentment, eliminating crucial institutional knowledge. She outsourced critical subcontracting to the lowest bidder, abandoning the partnership approach that ensured quality control. The cost savings looked impressive on paper, but the results were disastrous. Substandard work, expensive callbacks, damaged client relationships. Her most catastrophic decision, investing heavily in untested construction technologies, committing the company to expensive equipment and training based on vendor presentations, not practical testing. The technology investments failed spectacularly. Thompson Construction was left with enormous debt for machinery that couldn't perform while still needing traditional equipment to finish projects. Sarah began taking on projects far beyond Thompson Construction's scope, attracted by higher profit margins. The company bid on commercial and institutional projects requiring expertise and resources they didn't possess, leading to cost overruns and quality problems, lawsuits, and negative publicity. My father, David, now 62 and facing stress-related health problems, worked 18-hour days, trying to manage the damage, constantly apologizing for problems he couldn't prevent. The man who'd been proud and controlling was reduced to a shell. The financial situation spiraled. Legal fees mounted, insurance premiums skyrocketed. Their bonding capacity was revoked, credit lines exhausted. They were trapped. My mother, Linda, suffered 2 stress-related hospitalizations. The confident woman who dismissed my potential became anxious, withdrawn, unable to understand how their carefully planned succession had gone so wrong. Sarah's marriage collapsed after 2 years. Her husband realized Thompson Construction was a liability, not an asset. The divorce was bitter and expensive, adding personal humiliation to her professional failures. Former employees were approaching competitors, offering insider information. The company's reputation had deteriorated so severely that their own workers were actively seeking employment elsewhere, undermining their employer's competitive position. The tragic part? Everyone recognized the problems, but felt powerless. Sarah lacked practical experience. My father's traditional knowledge couldn't overcome the financial and legal quagmire. James Mitchell, Thompson Construction's longtime accountant and a family friend, began quietly assessing potential buyers for the company's remaining assets. Acknowledgement that Thompson Construction might not survive. The breaking point arrived when Springfield's largest commercial client, Midwest Development Corporation, terminated their exclusive contractor agreement. Thompson Construction had failed to complete a shopping center on time and within budget. This lost contract eliminated nearly 40% of their annual revenue, generating negative publicity that made attracting new business impossible. Industry publications began covering Thompson Construction's problems as a cautionary tale of poor succession planning. The articles felt like obituaries. The climactic revelation came when James Mitchell contacted me directly. The conversation was awkward at first. We'd had limited interaction. James explained that Thompson Construction would declare bankruptcy within 60 days unless someone injected serious capital and restructured operations. They owed $1.3 million to suppliers and subcontractors, faced multiple lawsuits. But the most shocking information involved a sealed envelope Grandpa Thomas had left with specific instructions for James. Open it only if Thompson Construction faced imminent destruction. It had remained unopened for over 12 years. Inside was a handwritten letter from Grandpa Thomas, dated months before his death, along with detailed architectural drawings and business plans. He had remarkable foresight. The letter revealed he had always intended for me to eventually save the family business, having predicted Sarah's academic credentials wouldn't translate into practical success. He concluded with specific instructions for James to contact me if bankruptcy loomed, because true builders don't just construct buildings, they rebuild what's been broken, including families. My grandfather had known. He'd known my parents' character better than they knew themselves. He'd known their favoritism would destroy what he'd built, and he'd planned for my return even while I was being pushed away. The phone call that changed everything came at 2:17 on a Tuesday morning, jarring me awake in my Austin home. My father's voice was barely recognizable, cracked by exhaustion, stripped of all authority. David Thompson, the man who'd banished me 10 years earlier, was begging his disowned son to save everything he'd failed to protect. Ryan, he whispered, his words broken by what sounded like years of accumulated pain. I know I have no right to ask anything from you after what we did. But Thompson Construction is dying, and you're the only person who might be able to save it. Please, I'm begging you to come home. The conversation that followed was surreal. My father admitted mistakes he'd never acknowledged. He confessed Sarah's MBA strategies had been disasters, destroying relationships, wasting resources, alienating everyone. The golden child had proven incapable. Between tears and apologies, Dad explained they had maybe 60 days before bankruptcy. Suppliers were demanding payment, lenders circling, employees abandoning a sinking ship. Thompson Construction's century of success was about to end in complete failure. I was wrong about everything, he choked out. Wrong about you. Wrong about Sarah. Wrong about what the business needed. Your grandfather tried to tell me, but I was too proud, too stupid to listen. Now we've lost everything, and it's all my fault. I listened to his desperation, feeling a complex mix of emotions I hadn't anticipated. Part of me wanted to hang up, let them face the consequences. But another part, the part that still remembered Grandpa Thomas's lessons about responsibility and family, knew I couldn't walk away from people who needed help, even if they were the very people who'd rejected me. After an hour of painful conversation, I agreed to return to Springfield for a family meeting, but only under strict conditions. It would be at Thompson Construction's office, all family members present, and they would listen to my complete assessment before making any decisions. The drive from Austin to Springfield took 12 hours. It felt like traveling backward through time. Every mile brought memories of the heartbroken, angry teenager who'd fled that same route, carrying nothing but his grandfather's tools. Now, I was returning as the successful businessman my parents never believed I could become. Springfield looked smaller, more rundown. Downtown showed economic decline. Thompson Construction's office, once a symbol of prosperity, now needed exterior maintenance, reflecting its financial problems. Inside, the changes were even more dramatic. The lobby, once filled with Grandpa Thomas's photos, looked tired, disorganized. Sarah's college certificates hung on walls where family history had been celebrated, but even those seemed diminished by the obvious financial stress. The meeting took place in the conference room where I'd once listened to Grandpa explain construction principles. Now, the same space held the 3 family members who'd rejected me, each showing the physical and emotional toll of watching their carefully planned future collapse. My mother, Linda, looked fragile, older than her 58 years, with stress lines and a nervous energy suggesting ongoing health problems. The confident woman who dismissed my potential was replaced by someone genuinely frightened. When she saw me, tears started immediately. Sarah, now 31, was the most dramatically changed. The golden child, once embodying our parents' ambitions, looked exhausted and defeated. carrying the weight of expectations she'd never been equipped to meet. Her business attire was professional but worn, hinting at personal financial pressures. My father seemed to have aged 15 years. The proud, controlling man now sat hunched over financial documents that told a story of complete business failure. His hair was gray, his face lined with worry, his hands shook slightly. The financial reality was worse than James Mitchell's warnings. $1.3 million owed, 6 active lawsuits, revoked bonding capacity, exhausted credit lines, unsustainable insurance premiums. But the emotional reality was equally devastating. Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper, admitting truths that had taken years of failure to acknowledge. She'd never wanted the business, felt pressured to fulfill impossible expectations. She'd known from the beginning that I was the family member who truly understood construction, but had been too proud, too frightened to admit her inadequacy until it was too late. I tried to reach out to you several times over the years, Sarah confessed, her eyes on the table. I wrote letters I never sent, looked up your information online, even drove past your apartment in Austin once, but I was too ashamed to make contact after what we'd done to you. The admission that she'd known about my success, but couldn't bridge the gap, added another layer of tragedy to their collapse. While I built Green Foundation Innovations, Sarah had been drowning in responsibilities she never wanted, destroying something she never understood. My father's breakdown was complete. He acknowledged every major decision regarding the business had been wrong. Choosing Sarah over me, implementing her MBA strategies, abandoning traditional approaches. Each choice moved them closer to catastrophic failure. Your grandfather knew, Dad said, his voice filled with regret. He tried to tell me you were the one who understood what this business needed, but I was too arrogant to listen. I thought education and credentials mattered more than passion and experience. I was completely wrong. The emotional climax arrived when I opened Grandpa Thomas's sealed letter in front of my family, reading his words aloud. The letter revealed detailed plans for expanding Thompson Construction using sustainable building techniques, identical to the innovations I'd later developed independently. Grandpa Thomas had somehow predicted the future of construction and knew I was the only family member with the vision and ability to guide the business through that transition. His letter concluded with specific instructions. Give me complete control of the company if it ever faced destruction, because true builders don't just construct buildings, they rebuild what's been broken, including families. As I finished reading, the room fell silent, save for my mother's quiet crying and the rustle of papers as my father gathered the financial documents. In that moment, I realized my return wasn't just about saving a business. It was about healing relationships damaged by pride, misunderstanding, and the painful consequences of choosing image over substance. The decision I made in that conference room would determine not only Thompson Construction's future, but whether our family could move beyond the mistakes that had driven us apart, to rebuild trust and respect. Looking at my broken family, I realized revenge would be hollow compared to the opportunity for genuine healing. The scared teenager who'd fled Springfield had been replaced by someone capable of seeing beyond past hurts to potential futures that honored both my grandfather's legacy and the lessons learned through years of separation. I'll save Thompson Construction, I told them, my voice steady but filled with emotion. But we're going to do this the right way, using the principles Grandpa Thomas tried to teach all of us. The business will be rebuilt according to his vision and my experience, focusing on quality, innovation, and genuine service to our community. My conditions were non-negotiable, but fair. I would invest $2 million of my own money to stabilize operations and fund the transition. But I would have complete authority over all business decisions during the rebuilding. Sarah would step aside willingly, focusing her MBA skills on administrative functions that matched her actual strengths. My father would remain a senior consultant, sharing his local knowledge, accepting that leadership had passed. My mother would oversee customer service and community relations. The transformation began immediately. We rehired experienced foremen and skilled workers driven away by Sarah's misguided theories. I personally apologized to each returning employee, explaining their expertise was valued. We terminated relationships with low-bid subcontractors, returning to the partnership approach. Initial costs were higher, but improved quality and reliability quickly restored client confidence. My energy-efficient retrofitting techniques, adapted for the Midwest, became Thompson Construction's signature specialization, differentiating us from competitors and addressing growing demand for sustainable building solutions. The business turnaround took 18 months of intensive effort, but the results exceeded everyone's expectations. Thompson Construction not only survived but emerged stronger, with a diversified service portfolio and a reputation for innovation that attracted clients from across the region. We employed twice as many people as before the crisis, generating higher profits through improved efficiency. The personal healing process was more gradual, but equally meaningful. My mother's health dramatically improved as financial stress decreased. She became genuinely interested in the business, asking thoughtful questions that helped her excel in customer relations. My father learned to respect my expertise, finding fulfillment in mentoring younger employees and sharing company history. The controlling man I remembered was replaced by someone who appreciated collaboration. Sarah found genuine relief in stepping away from responsibilities she never wanted, using her business education to develop administrative systems that supported construction operations. She even started consulting for other family businesses. The most symbolic moment came when I restored Grandpa Thomas's original office, exactly as he'd left it, adding my industry awards and magazine covers alongside his vintage tools and family photos. The space became a reminder that success built on solid foundations could survive any setback. 2 years after that desperate midnight phone call, Thompson Construction was thriving again, the premier contractor in Central Illinois. We'd expanded services, improved profitability, and most importantly, restored the reputation for integrity and excellence that had defined 4 generations. My personal net worth grew substantially, but the financial gains felt less important than the restoration of family relationships and business principles that honored my grandfather's memory while building something sustainable for the future. The deepest satisfaction came from knowing we transformed a crisis, caused by favoritism and poor judgment, into an opportunity for growth, understanding, and genuine family unity. The golden child favoritism that had driven us apart was replaced by mutual respect based on actual contributions, not imagined potential. Standing in Grandpa Thomas's restored office, surrounded by history and contemporary success, I realized being pushed out of my family had been the greatest gift they could have given me. The rejection forced me to develop independence, resilience, and expertise I never would have gained if they'd simply handed me the business. My parents' favoritism towards Sarah had been a painful mistake, nearly destroying a century-old business. But their inability to see my potential ultimately led me to exceed even my own expectations, building success far beyond anything they could have provided through family connections. The lesson was clear. Sometimes, the greatest obstacles become the most important opportunities for growth. The people who reject us often do us the greatest favor by forcing us to discover our own strength and potential. True success comes not from meeting others' expectations, but from following our own passion and principles, regardless of external approval. Family businesses work best when based on genuine capability and shared values. My parents' golden child approach ignored fundamental realities about individual strengths and the specific skills required for construction industry success. Most importantly, I learned that forgiveness and rebuilding are more powerful than revenge or resentment. By choosing to save my family's business, I gained something more valuable than vindication: the satisfaction of honoring my grandfather's legacy while creating opportunities for future generations to build on solid foundations of mutual respect and shared commitment to excellence. Thompson Construction continues to grow and innovate, proving that traditional family businesses can adapt to contemporary challenges without abandoning their fundamental values. We're not just building structures, we're building relationships, community connections, and sustainable solutions that will serve for decades to come. The scared teenager who fled Springfield became a confident leader, understanding that true strength comes from lifting others up. The family that nearly destroyed itself through favoritism and pride has learned to celebrate individual contributions, working towards shared goals that benefit everyone. As I look toward the future, I see endless possibilities for continuing Grandpa Thomas's legacy. The foundation is solid, the relationships are healthy, and the commitment to excellence is unwavering. Sometimes, the greatest success stories begin with the most painful rejections, and the families that seem most broken can become the strongest when rebuilt on honesty, respect, and genuine understanding. What would you do if your family chose someone else over you, only to realize years later they'd made a terrible mistake? Would you help them rebuild what they'd destroyed, or let them face the consequences alone? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video if you believe that family businesses should be based on actual ability rather than favoritism. Subscribe for more stories about overcoming rejection and building success through determination and hard work. And please, share this story with anyone who's ever felt like the overlooked family member. Sometimes, being pushed aside is exactly what we need to discover our true potential. Thank you for listening to this journey of family conflict, personal growth, and ultimate redemption. Remember that your worth isn't determined by others' opinions of your potential, but by your commitment to following your passion and building something meaningful, regardless of external approval. Keep building your dreams, one solid foundation at a time.